I hope you enjoy my stories. Instead of just clicking thumbs down, please comment and share how we can do better. If you do like our video, then please like and subscribe.
So this happened almost 10 plus years ago, but has cemented my hatred for HOAs. My family is from Guam, a small Pacific island and U.S. territory, where there isn't much if any HOAs. We moved stateside around 2001-2002 when my dad decided he wanted to. My parents had good jobs and made good money and decent credit.
We lived in Tennessee for a while, until we drove up to Indiana to visit some family. I guess my dad liked it so much, he decided to move there.
Well, after my parents got transferred to their business Indiana branch, a few months later we moved there.
Our house was very modest, but a bit more extra than most because it was a part of an HOA.
A few months living there, my dad noticed a crack in the garage, poor foundation, and notified our builder.
The HOA was still being built, so he was easy to find.
The builder said he'd take a look. Come to find out that not only was the foundation poorly set, but the plot of land it was sinking.
Screwed up thing. One, my parents were told that in order to fix it, it would cost more than their home loan because of the condition of the land it was on. The builder suggested that they pay him 25% cash of the home's value, and he'll build them a new house with their current mortgage cut down 25% as a good faith gesture. Screwed up thing too.
As you're reading this, you're probably thinking, that can't be right. That's not legal. That's not how that works. Well, you're right. But being from a small island where you can trust someone at their word, it didn't occur to my parents to question it or get legal advice.
Anyways, back to the story?
So our new house is built nicer than our previous home and not sinking.
Life is good for a while until we had to go on an extended trip due to family emergency.
Luckily, at this point, we've been living there for years and my parents made some friends.
We would have just left, but one of their friends let them know that they needed to inform the HOA that some lawn and garden standards wouldn't be kept due to the trip. Yes, my parents should have read the bylaws, but at first they were excited to own a home, so they never did.
At the time of the emergency, they weren't thinking about anything but getting back to Guam.
Back to the story.
So my parents, still thinking that a face-to-face with the HOA board would be good enough, did just that.
Told them during a HOA meeting, that's it.
Well, our trip took a little while longer than expected. The whole summer and part of the first school year, but we finally got home. Waiting at our door was countless letter, warnings, fines, and more fines. Screwed up thing 3. I don't exactly remember what the total was, but it really doesn't matter. My parents were broke. They spent their savings getting us to and from Guam and paying the mortgage, so yay, no back fund.
My parents went straight to the HOA for answers.
Basically, it boiled down to they didn't notify the HOA of the reason for the drop in standards, so they were well within their rights to post fines, and the worst part, put a lien on our home.
My parents barely covered the mortgage and the trip to Guam. They tried reasoning with them until eventually they went to court. As you're guessing from the title, it didn't go well. The HOA board hung on to the fact that my parents didn't send an email and wait for board approval. They won.
My parents were forced to pay the lien while also paying the mortgage. At first, my parents were optimistic, but it got to the point where it was pay the mortgage, fines, or feed my brothers, and they fell further behind and were starting to fight about it. It became too much for them, so they had to walk away from our home. My mom was devastated and my dad felt like a failure. I was old enough to understand what was going on, but my brothers didn't know why we had to leave our home. The whole ordeal destroyed my parents' credit, wiped out their savings, and cost my parents their good jobs. Mom's job in finances required good credit, and my dad had to work closer to home because of the financial situation. I don't think there's any way they can recover from what they walked away from, but they're not fighting and don't have to choose between paying rent and feeding my brother.
The whole experience made me really hate HOAs. While I understand why they are needed, and in some cases make complete sense, I will never move my family into one if I can help it. I never thought joining the homeowners association would lead to such a mess.
When I moved into this quaint neighborhood 3 years ago, I was eager to be part of the community. Unaware of the impending chaos that lay ahead, I was signing up for a roller coaster ride of absurdity. It all started innocently enough. A couple of new faces popped up on the HOA board, promising positive changes and increased community engagement.
But as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. One chilly evening, a notice appeared on our doors announcing a slew of new rules. Most of them were harmless, like stricter guidelines for lawn maintenance and noise control.
But buried within the list was a bombshell: no boats allowed on the lake. Now I'm not an avid boater, but I do enjoy the occasional weekend fishing trip with my son.
The lake was one of the main attractions of our neighborhood, and many residents owned boats they kept docked right outside their homes. Naturally, the uproar was immediate. Town hall meetings turned into shouting matches as neighbors voiced their frustrations. The new board members remained steadfast, claiming the ban was necessary for safety and aesthetics. But rumors started swirling. Whispers of hidden agendas and ulterior motives echoed through the neighborhood. And then, the truth emerged like a sun breaking through storm clouds. The board members had a personal vendetta against boats. It turned out they were avid swimmers and fishermen who saw boats as nothing but a hindrance to their recreational pursuits.
They didn't care about the community. They just wanted the lake for themselves.
Furious, several residents banded together and took the matter to court.
It was a long and arduous battle, with lawyers on both sides slinging legal jargon like mud in a mud wrestling match. But justice, as they say, prevails.
In a stunning revelation, it was discovered that the HOA didn't even own the lake. In fact, it was public property belonging to the state all along. The dock fees they had been collecting for years amounted to nothing more than embezzlement. The courtroom erupted in chaos as the judge delivered the verdict. The entire HOA board was to be ousted, and the stolen funds had to be repaid to the state. It was a humiliating defeat for the once powerful board members who slunk away with their tails between their legs. As for the rest of us, it was a bittersweet victory. The dark cloud of tyranny had been lifted, but the damage had been done. Trust in the HOA had been shattered, and it would take years to rebuild the sense of community that had been so callously destroyed. But amidst the wreckage there was hope. New leaders emerged from the ashes, determined to learn from the mistakes of the past and forge a brighter future for our neighborhood.
And as I stood on the shores of the lake, watching the sun set over the rippling waters, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of optimism for what lay ahead. After all, in the end, it's not the setbacks that define us, but how we rise above them. I live in a township, so in Ohio, that means I can hunt and shoot on my own property. I also live next to a HOA, but not in it. I also have some crazy neighbors who seem to think that my property is their property. Example, I live on 2.5 acres, and I would probably say 70% of it is wooded, with a large amount of 100 to 150-year-old trees.
I had just moved in back in March, and one of the first things I did was walk around the property and locate and remark all of my property stakes to know exactly what was mine.
And I also marked all of the standing trees that were dead and needed to be cut down.
And then a police car shows up because one of my crazy neighbors that I have caught multiple times trespassing on my property thinks that my trees are apparently her trees and didn't want me cutting down the dead ones. So, on 4th of July week this year, bunch of guys from work asked me if I wanted to go shooting at a local outdoor range. When I asked what range it was, I told them no, why don't all of you just come over my house, and we can shoot for free and not have to drive for an hour to a crappy range.
And they asked, well, what about my neighbors?
And I said, F them. That's exactly why I bought this property, to do what the hell I want.
So I posted on the local neighborhoods group to give everybody a heads up. If they hear a bunch of gunfire on that Friday afternoon, there's no need to freak out. I was just using my range with some friends. And of course, that's when the fun started, smiley face. There was a good mix of people saying great wish they could come, and then a bunch of the HOA busybodies complaining that I can't do that, and that the noise would be offensive, and they have rules against that, and so on. Now flash forward to the Thursday before, and I'm out in the yard, setting up all of my steel plate targets on my 100-yard range, when I see a police car pull in the driveway again.
So the sergeant says, "You can probably guess why I'm here laughing."
And I said, "Yeah, I probably have a good idea." He says, "I just want to start off saying you're 100% right, and you can shoot and hunt on your own property. And it's not a problem, but since we had a bunch of calls, I wanted to stop out here and talk with you that way. We don't have to bother you at all during your shoot tomorrow." He says he just wanted to stop out, introduce himself, meet me, and take a look at the range real quick, and everything looked great.
So this way come Friday, if they get a bunch of calls into dispatch, they won't have to send anybody out. They can just let everybody know on the phone call that everything's legal.
So Friday comes along and about 6 guys from work show up, and we went through probably 1,000+ rounds in a couple hours from 22s, all the way up to my 50 BMG I let them play with. 2 of the guys brought guns with binary triggers, so we were doing some 30-round mag dumps for fun as well. Later that night, I go back on the website to see what the posts were like, starting off with,
"Sounds like the party started,"
along with people whining and bitching that they called the police, and we're told that everything was legal and there was nothing for them to do, and commented with, "Well, I guess the police won't do anything until somebody's shot." Yes, that's right, newsflash. The police don't arrest you for pre-crime. That would be like them pulling you over for speeding before you've left your driveway because you might speed down the road.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.